Hey guys, it's Ponyboy, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a hand drill, which is one of the most primitive forms of fire making, and this is what you'll need. One large carving knife and one small carving knife. This one's just a little pelican's bill. A small hand plane, one furrow club, a small furrow, a small handsaw, one piece of 80 grit sandpaper, one dried mullein stalk. It should be very long like this one. One big chunk of white cedar. Okay, so now I'm almost ready to make my board. But first I had to split the whole piece in half because there was a giant knot and I wouldn't have gotten very much boards. So I did that. But before we split it, I'm going to show you something, which is very important. See all these little lines, the growth rings? If you look, they're kind of going across that way, and then the piece of wood here is all smooth. It's not very stringy, and right there you can kind of see a window. That won't work because the grain is going that way. The spindle won't penetrate it. You won't get any dust. It'll just turn into like this glassy, smooth stuff. But if you look at the grain again, and it's going down, or even like up through your board, and then look at that piece of wood, it's all stringy. That is what you want, and that'll work the best. So once you've figured out which way your wood is going, let's get to splitting the piece. So now I've got my piece of cedar, my furrow club, and my furrow, and I'm going to start splitting. Hold the furrow in your less dominant hand, and put it across straight in the manner that I showed you before, and just make sure that it's about half an inch or larger thick. We're going to shave it down because you don't want it to be that thick, but it's better to have a too thick board than a too thin board. So hold it on there and press down, then whack it with the club until it starts to stick in. And then just keep whacking, make sure that it's even. And you can see this piece just split. And it's finished. Once you're almost down there, just pull back and it'll break off. Now we're going to shave that down. So now we're going to take our knife and our piece of cedar and just shave it down evenly until the whole thing is flat on both sides, and until it's the desired thickness, which should be like half an inch or a little bit thinner. And it's really good to do this properly because then when you're using it and you're standing on it, it won't shake around. And then we'll get to the next part. Okay, so now that we've gotten our board all smoothed out, doesn't need to be perfect, we'll take care of that later. You're gonna notice that there's this hard white stuff right here, this white wood, and that you can't use, it's way too hard. So we're gonna split that off with the furrow. This is the last time we'll need it in this video. And try not to get rid of too much of the redder wood because you'll need that. And see, it's not perfect. You still got some white wood on there, but I'll show you what to do with that in a minute. So now that we've split off most of the white wood, we're going to take our bigger knife and slice whatever's remaining off. It doesn't need to be perfect, you just want most of it off. And then, when you're done with that, we're going to take our plane and go over the board until it's smooth. And when it's smooth enough for you and you're satisfied, we'll get to the next step. Okay, so now I'm finished shaving, and my board is very smooth. There are no traces of white anymore. yours should look like this too. And the reason we did this is because we didn't want it to shake around. See, there's barely any shaking or tilting when I put it down on either side, and that's very good. If we hadn't done that, it would have shaken a lot, and you could have been making your fire with your spindle. It bends over, your spindle breaks, all your dust falls out, something horrible happens. Yeah, so now we're going to get to work on our spindle, which is almost the last part. Okay, so now for the spindle. I've got my piece of mullein, also known as lamb's ear, but depending on where you live, you might not have this. So whatever you can get your hands on, it should have these few things. It should be very long, and you should make sure that's very straight. So look down its whole length, and you don't want too many kinks because that will be very painful when you're using it. And the other thing is that you also want a bunch of wood on this if you're using the mullein. There's all that yellow pith, which doesn't really do anything in a hand drill, but the woody part is what makes the dust. So make sure that you've got a lot of that. I cut this piece off so that you could see it. And then once you've made sure that your piece has all of these, we will get started on the spindle. Okay, so take your mini knife and your spindle material, and you'll see all these little bumps if you're using mullein. That's the leaf scar, and that hurts a lot, so you're going to need to take all of those off with your mini knife. But don't go in too far, like leave a little nub, because that goes right into the pith, and you might go too far and then ruin the whole spindle, which would be upsetting. So just try to take all of them off, or as many as you can, and then we'll get to the next part. Okay, so now I've gotten almost all those little leaf scars off. I didn't do the ones up here because I'm going to be cutting this off, and that'll still be a very good length. So take your knife and just go in a circle around the spindle, wherever you want to cut off. You should have a good 2 feet. And then just kind of round it over so that you don't stab yourself while you're using it. And then this bottom part, if you've got this, there's like a big bend right here. I'm going to cut that off too. And it doesn't need to be perfect, like in a circle, because you can fix that later. Just like that. And then don't finish the end yet, because there's no reason to. So now I've got this nice spindle, but it's still kind of bumpy. So I'm going to take my plane and just run it across the whole thing. And then do this until all those bumps are gone and it feels pretty comfortable in your hands. Okay, so I've been planing for a while, and now my spindle is fairly smooth, but not quite how I'd like it. So I'm going to take my 80 grit sandpaper and wrap it around it, or you can place it on the ground like this and go back and forth, but I prefer just wrapping it. And then I'm going to go back and forth across the whole thing, turning it in my hand until it's as smooth as I need it to be. You don't want to use anything higher than this, because once you get a spindle too smooth, your hands won't stick to it and it'll just slide out like glass, and that's not too fun. So once you've done that, place your sandpaper on your table or the ground, and go back and forth on the bottom of the spindle until it's pretty much flat, so that you have a perfect circle, not some mangled, spiky thing. And then do that on the top too. So that's all you need to do for the spindle, and now we're going to get ready to make our tinder bundle. So for the tinder bundle, I've got some of the shavings from the project that we made, some cedar bark, some cattail fluff mixed with sawdust, and some birch bark. The biggest piece I'm laying on top, but right now I'm going to focus on the cedar bark. So get the furriest piece and try shredding it, and it'll start to look like hair. So do that as much as you can to as many pieces as you can, and then lay that fur over this piece of birch bark and kind of hollow it out so that it looks like a nest, and then I'll show you what to do next. So now that you've made your cedar bark nest, take the birch bark and separate all the layers like that, and then kind of rip it into small pieces. Like that. And then lay them across that too. You don't need a whole lot. Birch bark's super flammable. And then take some of the finer shavings from this and also lay them across that. And you can take some of the rougher ones and put them across the sides. And then you're left with, it looks kind of like a rat nest, but it'll work. Now, take your cattail fluff and sawdust mixture, massage a little bit, add some of the cedar shavings, and then push that, like kind of aggressively into the middle, and kind of hollow it out. So then you've got this nice nest. And you can lay more birch bark or cedar shavings around the edge. And then I'll show you how to make a fire with it and use the tinder bundle.